So for today's video, we are just going to be having an experiment with these wireless LEDs. Let's go! Right, we're back with another crazy experiment. Now, I am stressing that this is an experiment. There's probably many better ways of doing this, but you know what I'm like. I do like to have a little play around with tech and resin. So I saw a video by a really big channel. I can't remember the channel's name now, but I will find it and I'll pop the link in the description. And they used this wireless LED tech to make a dice rolling system. So they basically had this on a bigger scale, and they incorporated the LEDs into some dice. So when they rolled the dice on the board, they lit up, which was really, really cool. So mine's a smaller scale. And what I'm going to do is try and create an endless coaster with a mirror, hello, these LEDs, and we're also going to need some mirror film. So this is one-way mirror film. And what I've done is bought some acrylic, just plain acrylic discs, to be able to stick the mirror film onto. These mirrors are also only acrylic, and everything fits inside my 10cm mould absolutely perfectly. Right, I haven't fully worked out how I'm going to do this. I do like to experiment with you guys as I'm going, so I might chop and change things as I move forward, but I'm not gonna. I could incorporate this disc into resin like I did with the wireless charger that I made in a previous video, but I'm not gonna do that today. I'm just gonna keep that as it is, and we're just gonna work on the actual concept, so that when we place it onto the mat, we then get the endless coaster effect. Right, let's get mixing. Before we get mixing, actually, we'll do the mirror film first. Now this comes in a big roll. I got mine in a big roll, but you could probably find this in a smaller size if you shop around. But again, all the links of everything I'm using, I'll try and source it in the US as well for you. I'll pop it in the description box below. So we just place the 10cm acrylic disc onto the mirror film and just score around the edges. And once you've got that marker, you can then go with some scissors and cut it out properly. As always, massive shout out to my channel members and to anyone who's bought me a coffee or a super thanks. So once we've got our mirror film cut, these acrylic sheets come with a protective film on both sides. It's really, really important that we keep this as clean as possible. It's a bit like putting a phone screen protector on. You don't want any bubbles or debris. I'm probably going to get one or two, but for the purpose of the video, I'll try and be as careful as possible. So this has got a peelable side on it as well. So we need to basically just adhere that to the disc. So I've got some of the film pulled back. I'm just going to try and gently lay that and line it up as best I can. Now I have got a tool with my Cricut, but I can't find it to smooth this out. So I'm just going to do the best I can with it. This stuff does scratch really easy as well, so just be careful. Just as I'm peeling it back, I'm just smoothing that down. Any excess we can cut off. So I can see a bubble there. I'll try and move that. Just try and push that out. So I've got a couple of, well, a few really tiny bubbles, but hopefully they won't show once we're finished. So now what I'm going to do is I've got the base plugged in, and I've kept the film on the mirror just to keep it clean, and I'm just going to place my lights just to work out roughly the depth of the moulds, or the mould. So I may have to do this in 2 coasters and join them together, I'm not sure yet. So I'm just going to place a few of the lights onto the mirror, and this will also tell me the right side to put this onto the piece. This is not really showing the effect because I've got the film on there at the moment. So I've used the other mirror that I've already taken the film off, because I do need to know, it is important to get that acrylic sheet the right way up. So you can see some effect. I think it needs to go the darker side up. This may help. I forgot to peel off the back. See that effect that we're getting? Now if I flip that over, still got it, but it's not as strong, so it definitely has to be that side up, which means we also need to seal in this film with a top layer after. We might be able to get away with doing it in one pour, you know, because the lights will support this top piece of acrylic. Right, let's get mixing. So once your resin is mixed, I'm using the 1-1 collaboration resin. We'll just peel off that mirror film and just place that inside, and then pour in your resin. So you can see there's lots of micro bubbles in mine, but whilst we're waiting for those to rise to the surface, we can now insert our lights. So with the kit that I bought, sadly the perimeter of the magnetic field is not very wide. So because this is such a large coaster mould, I'm going to have to bring the lights in more inwards, if that makes sense. So you could just chuck them all in and then just position them. I'm just going to use my dotting tool to just evenly position those. See, I'm just chucking them in because I can then get them exactly where I want them to be. Okay, so what you can do is just test the lights. I can't really get my camera down that far. Just hold the pad over the area and just make sure they all light up. So now comes the fiddly part. I think this is going to be quite tricky to get this mirrored perspex or acrylic onto the resin without causing any bubbles. I don't know whether to coat slightly with some resin first and then put it in. Let's think about it. But again, it is really important to make sure that this is clean before you attempt to put it in, and it's also very important that the resin is just slightly higher than the lights. So again, mirror side film up. I just hope this doesn't move the lights. It might spill over the edge also. I think what I'm going to do is just get my dotting tool under the side. Just really slowly lower that onto the resin. I'm probably going to get a couple of bubbles, but again, this is an experiment. And just let that slowly fall onto the resin. I can see some bubbles now. Trouble is, if I lift it, I really am at risk of causing more issues. Let's try. Ooh. Ooh, this is scary. Again, gotta love an experiment. I could be pulling those bubbles inwards now. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna have to let it go. Yeah, I'm just gonna have to leave it with those. I can see one there, one there, one there, and a big one here. So what I'm now doing is just gently pushing that disc down in the center and letting the resin flow over the edges onto the top. I'm going to have to do some trimming down afterwards, but I'm hoping as well this might push some of the bubbles outwards. I am just going to have to leave those in there. Again, you could think of a different way of doing it to reduce those bubbles. I think one or two of my lights have moved as well. So I'm just now topping up that surface, let that spread, and then pop the bubbles. So that's it. I've got a bit of overspill on this side, but I can trim that down once it's fully cured. I'm just going to wait for those bubbles and then I can pop them. Right, I'll see you for the exciting part. So, to keep you in the loop, obviously because this is an experiment and I want to share my experience with you as I go. What happened is where I've turned on my heat mat to try and cure things a bit faster, what happened is the film on the acrylic sheet started to ripple, and I'll show you. It started to pull away from the acrylic. I can only put that down to the heat. So what I've had to do is pull that out and basically realign everything where I'd moved the resin. Luckily I got to it whilst it was at a kind of a lower viscosity due to the heat. So what I'm going to have to do now is wait for this to cure and then work out what I'm going to do next. Okay, so I've waited for my resin to cool down and I've just applied another thin layer. I think it's a bit of a godsend because at least I've got rid of those big bubbles now. But what I'm going to do this time is just apply some of the resin to the disc and let that sit and get rid of some of the bubbles. And then same as before, just carefully lower that into the resin. And it fell. Please, 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 please work. Just watching it just slowly push the air out. We're at risk of some really big bubbles this time because it just fell. So now we don't have the heat on. I'm hoping that this time it just doesn't ripple. So I managed to lift it and get the worst of the bubbles out. I still have one, but I'm not going to obsess over it now. It's getting quite fiddly. So I'm just doming this. Well, not doming it, just covering that top film. Okay, so we are fully cured as an experiment. I'm quite happy with it. Oh, you can see some of the lights. It's not very practical, I know, but maybe it'll give you some ideas of different things that you could do on a bigger scale or smaller scale. I don't know. But let's see what we've got. You can see those micro bubbles. But for a first experiment, I am really happy with that. Almost look like stars or something in there, but there are quite a few micro bubbles. As always, guys, give the video a thumbs up, drop me a comment, and if you haven't subscribed, hit that button for me. But I will see you for the next one. Bye for now.